The silence of my home had always been a comfort, a gentle hum of memories. But that Sunday, it was broken, not by peace, but by laughter. My family gathered around my dining table, eating the meal I had prepared and discussing my future. Without me, I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter. A habit, a distraction, the clinking of cutlery, the muffled voices. My hearing isn't what it once was, but some words, they cut through the air, like knives. She can't stay here alone much longer. That was Robert, my son. His voice, usually so warm, now it was cold, clinical. It's for her own good, darling. My daughter-in-law Susan, always so proper, so polite. Her words were laced with a false sweetness. I froze. The damp cloth slipped from my fingers. It landed on the tiled floor with a soft splat, a sound I barely registered. My heart was pounding, a drum in my chest, a warning. The house is simply too big for one person, Robert continued. And the upkeep, it's becoming too much for her. He spoke as if I were a distant relative, a problem to be solved, not his mother. Think of the equity, though. Eleanor, my daughter, chimed in. Her voice was sharper, more eager. The market is good. A sale now would fetch a pretty penny. A pretty penny. They were talking about my home, the walls that held my life, my husband's ghost, the echoes of grandchildren's laughter, my sanctuary. I gripped the countertop, my knuckles white. A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't just about the house. It was about me. They were dissecting my life, like vultures circling. We could get her into that place, Susan suggested. Maple Grove. It has a good reputation, and it's not too far. Maple Grove. The thought made my stomach clench. A nursing home, a final resting place for the unwanted, the forgotten. Was that truly my future? A neat little room, strangers caring for me, while my children. It will free up a lot of capital, Robert said. His voice was lower now, conspiratorial. Between the house and her savings, we'll be able to manage everything properly. Manage everything. They meant control. My money, my independence, my very existence. They were planning my disappearance. A convenient removal. My breath hitched. A wave of nausea washed over me. I wanted to storm in, to scream, to demand answers, to ask them how they could do this. To me, their mother, who had raised them, sacrificed for them, loved them unconditionally. But a strange calm settled over me instead, a cold, hard resolve. I closed my eyes. The image of their faces, smiling around my table, eating my food, while planning my demise, burned behind my eyelids. My entire life, I had put them first. Their needs, their happiness. From scraped knees to university tuition, from broken hearts to wedding dresses, always them. And this was my reward. To be packed away, my assets plundered, my life neatly tidied up for their convenience. I opened my eyes. The world looked different now, sharper, colder. The scent of the roast, once comforting, now felt like a bitter mockery. I didn't make a sound. I didn't confront them. I simply stood there, listening, each word a nail in my coffin of trust. We'll need to get her to sign some papers, Eleanor pointed out. Power of attorney, financial guardianship. She trusts us, Robert replied, with a confident chuckle, a sound that grated on my ears. She always has. She's always done what we asked. She'll agree. It's for her own good after all. For my own good. The ultimate betrayal cloaked in concern. I heard them clear their throats, push back their chairs. They were done. Done with their meal. Done with their discussion. Done with me. They came into the kitchen then, all smiles, all warmth, as if nothing had been said, as if I hadn't just been shattered into 1,000 pieces. Mother, that was a wonderful meal, as always, Susan chirped, placing a hand on my arm, a touch that felt like a snake's coil. I forced a smile, a thin, brittle thing. Thank you, dear. My voice sounded strangely normal, detached. We were just discussing how well you're looking, Robert said, patting my shoulder. His eyes, though, flickered towards the doorway, towards the dining room, towards the remnants of their cruel conspiracy. I nodded. My mind was racing, not with despair, but with a fierce, burning clarity. They thought they knew me. They thought I was naive, frail, a spent force. They were wrong. So utterly, completely wrong. That night, after they had all left, and the house was once again plunged into its familiar silence, I did not sleep. I sat in my living room, the room where my husband and I had spent so many happy evenings, the room they planned to sell. The moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny reminder of time passing, of life lived, and of the precious little time I had left to make things right. I pulled out the old photo albums, pictures of Robert and Eleanor as children, bright-eyed, innocent, full of promise. How had they become this? These strangers, planning my fate. A single tear traced a path down my weathered cheek. But it wasn't a tear of sorrow. It was a tear of resolve, of indignation, of a quiet fury that had been dormant for too long. They wanted to manage my assets, to control my future, to put me in a home. They had made their choices. Now it was my turn. I thought of the charity I had always admired, the one that helped elderly people retain their independence, the one that fought for dignity. They needed funds, far more than my children needed another pretty penny. The decision solidified, cold, clear, unwavering. I would not go quietly. I would not be managed. And I certainly would not let them profit from their betrayal. The sun was just beginning to paint the sky with streaks of orange and pink when I finally rose from my armchair. My bones ached. My eyes were heavy, but my mind was sharp, sharper than it had been in years. I walked into my study, the one room they rarely entered, my sanctuary, my command center. My old desktop computer sat waiting, a relic perhaps, but still functional. I turned it on. The screen glowed to life. A faint whirring sound filled the quiet room. I knew exactly what I had to do. The plan was forming, a precise, quiet revolution. This was no longer about hurt. It was about justice. My justice. The charity's website address was easy to recall. I typed it in. My fingers, a little shaky but firm. The door closed softly behind me. My own bedroom, my sanctuary for decades. Now it felt like a prison cell, or a waiting room, waiting for judgment, waiting for eviction. The words still echoed. A home. Liquidation. His best interest. My best interest? Discussed like I was a problem to be solved, an object to be moved, not a person, not their father, not their grandfather. I sank onto the edge of my bed. The old quilt, a wedding gift from my mother, felt cold against my hands. My hands, once strong and capable. Hands that built this house, brick by brick, dream by dream. Hands that toiled, provided, comforted. Now they trembled slightly, betraying the storm raging inside me. I remembered every sacrifice, every extra shift I picked up at the factory, the ache in my bones, a testament to my dedication, putting their education before my own comfort, before even the thought of an early retirement, going without new clothes, new experiences, so they could have school trips, brand-name shoes, summers spent working 2 jobs, watching other families pack up for vacations, while I saved for tuition. Christmas presents bought with carefully saved coins, always for them, always for my family. And now? Now I was a burden, a line item on a budget sheet, a property deed to be liquidated. My life, neatly categorized, labeled for disposal. I watched them from my window later that evening. Dinner was ready. Laughter drifted up from the kitchen, a cheerful, oblivious sound that grated on my raw nerves. My daughter, Sarah, stirring a pot, her face alight with an easy smile. My son, David, helping set the table, whistling a jaunty tune. Their spouses chatting amiably, their grandchildren playing a noisy game on the living room rug. A perfect family scene, a picture of domestic bliss, a profound, sickening lie. They didn't know I knew. Their faces were innocent of malice, perhaps, but certainly not of greed. Their smiles warm, too warm, a veneer over cold calculation. Did they truly think I was so senile, so useless, so utterly deaf that I wouldn't hear their whispered plans, or understand the chilling implications? A knot tightened in my stomach. It wasn't just anger, though a fiery rage simmered beneath the surface. It was a deep, aching sorrow, a sense of profound, soul-crushing betrayal that chilled me to the bone, my own flesh and blood, planning my demise, planning my financial ruin, planning to erase me from the very life I had built. I looked around my room. Every object held a memory, a piece of me. The antique dresser I inherited from my grandmother, its polished surface reflecting the fading light. The worn armchair where I used to read bedtime stories to Sarah, then David, then later to their children. The framed photos on my nightstand, smiling faces, young, hopeful faces looking back at me. They were all part more my story, part of more life. And they wanted to take it all, to sell it off like unwanted junk, to divide the spoils amongst themselves, my legacy, my memories, reduced to a cold, hard monetary value, a liquidation. The word itself was a hammer blow. The next few days passed in a blur of forced smiles and carefully chosen words. I ate with them. I listened to their conversations, passing every inflection, every paused sentence. I nodded at their suggestions, feigning compliance. Each word they uttered, each casual glance, felt like a fresh wound. They spoke of trivial things, the weather, the neighbor's new car, the children's school. They spoke of everything but my future directly, but I could see it in their eyes. The subtle shifts, the way they avoided my gaze when I spoke of staying here, the way they exchanged meaningful glances when I mentioned a forgotten chore. Dad, have you thought about simplifying things? Sarah asked one afternoon, her voice overly sweet, a saccharine tone that set my teeth on edge. She always used that tone when she wanted something from me, or was trying to soften a blow. Simplifying what, dear? I asked, keeping my tone level, a mask of innocent inquiry firmly in place. Just your living arrangements. The house is so big for one person now. So much upkeep, David chimed in, leaning back in his chair, seemingly relaxed, but his eyes darted to mine. His hands, I noticed, were clasped tightly. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. They were testing the waters, sounding me out. They wanted me to agree, to make it easier for them, to walk willingly into their trap. This house is my home, I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet imbued with all the conviction I could muster. It has always been my home, and it will remain my home. They exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. A plan, a strategy. I saw it all, the slight slump of their shoulders, the barely perceptible tightening of their jaws. They wouldn't give up. Later that day, while they were out running errands, I walked through the house. Each room held a lifetime. The kitchen, where my late wife baked her famous apple pies, the scent of cinnamon still lingering in my memory. The living room, where we celebrated countless Christmases, the trees sparkling, carols filling the air. The garden, where I spent so many peaceful hours tending to my roses, their vibrant petals, a testament to patience and care. This wasn't just wood and brick, it was the vessel of my life, my sanctuary, my legacy, my dignity, and they wanted to sell it, to turn it into cash, to fund their own lives, their own futures, with my past, with my sacrifices. The thought ignited a fire within me, a cold, determined, unyielding fire. I remembered something my wife, Eleanor, once told me, her eyes twinkling with a practical wisdom. Always have a backup plan, my love, for anything, for everything, especially when dealing with family. She was a shrewd woman, wise. I missed her counsel, her quiet strength, more than ever. But even without her, I knew what I had to do. Or, at least, I was beginning to know. The injustice burned, the betrayal festered, and a strange, crystal clear clarity began to emerge from the pain. They had planned to disinherit me from my own life, to steal my dignity, to strip me of my autonomy, to leave me helpless and dependent. But what if I stripped them first? Not of things, not yet, but of their greedy expectations, of what they thought was theirs by right, merely because of blood. The house seemed to hum with silent questions. What would I do? How would I respond to such a calculated insult? I went back to my bedroom, sat at my old desk, the familiar scent of old wood and ink calming me slightly, pulled open the bottom drawer. Tucked away, beneath old letters and photographs, was a worn leather folder. Inside, my will, my financial statements, my deeds. These documents, they represented everything, everything I had worked for, every penny saved, every investment made, everything I had built, and they were mine, still, for now. The decision was not fully formed, not yet, but the path ahead was becoming clearer, a path they would never expect, a path they would never forgive, a path of quiet, deliberate defiance, a path of poetic justice. My eyes scanned the numbers on the statements. Years of careful saving, years of investment, a comfortable sum, more than comfortable, enough to ensure my comfort certainly, enough, apparently, to make my children greedy beyond measure, enough to blind them to the very Father who provided it. I closed the folder slowly, deliberately. The weight of it in my hands felt immense. It was more than just paper. It was my power, my last stand, my final, unyielding declaration. And I would not go quietly into that good night. I would not let them decide my fate. Not any more. I would decide it. A name came to mind. An old friend. A lawyer. Robert Miller. Discreet. Trustworthy. Someone who understood the nuances of family and of betrayal. Someone who could navigate the labyrinthine legalities without raising suspicion. I would need his help. I would need his guidance. But the resolve was solidifying, hardening into an unshakable core. They discussed my future. They planned my fate. But I would decide it, and it would not be what they expected. Not by a long shot. It would be my own, meticulously crafted ending to their self-serving play. The night was drawing in. The house grew quiet, settling into its nightly slumber. The family was asleep, oblivious in their beds, but I was awake, planning, scheming, reclaiming my dignity. One quiet thought, one firm decision at a time. The game had changed, and they didn't even know they were playing. They would learn soon enough. The days that followed were a strange ballet of outward calm and inner turmoil. My children, my grandchildren, they moved through my home, through my life, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Every glance, every casual remark, every shared meal was now seen through a new lens, a lens not of love, but of betrayal and of steely resolve. I watched them. I watched how James, my eldest, would absent-mindedly run his hand over the antique mahogany mantelpiece, a gift from my own father. His eyes held a calculating glint, as if appraising its resale value. He'd even picked up a small hand-carved bird from the shelf, turning it over in his fingers, a piece I cherished, and then replaced it with a dismissive shrug, as if to say, "This old thing?" My daughter Sarah would talk endlessly about her upcoming vacation, dropping heavy-handed hints about extra expenses and tight budgets, while simultaneously extolling the virtues of a nearby assisted living facility. "It's so bright, Mother," she'd chirp, her voice overly sweet. "And they have group activities. You'd love it. You wouldn't have to worry about cleaning or cooking." She'd even brought over a tray of frozen dinners one day, just to help out, though I knew it was another step in slowly eroding my independence. My silence was my shield. My nod, my polite smile, my murmured agreements were nothing but camouflage. They thought I was docile, fading, accepting my fate. They mistook my quiet for consent. They were wrong. So terribly, terribly wrong. The realization that they saw me not as a person, but as a problem, or worse, a prize to be claimed, was a colder shock than any winter wind. That night, after Sarah had left, taking her bright, suffocating chair with her, I began my work. The old desktop computer, usually relegated to emails and occasional news articles, became my secret weapon. The soft hum of its fan was the only sound in the quiet house, a conspiratorial whisper. Hours slipped by. I researched. I typed. I read. My fingers, gnarled with age, moved with a newfound precision, a desperate urgency. My eyes, once prone to fatigue, scanned lines of text with sharp focus, fueled by a simmering indignation. I sought not revenge, not exactly. Revenge felt petty, too small for the magnitude of what they had done. I sought justice, a quiet, undeniable justice. I searched for institutions, for organizations devoted to causes I believed in, causes I had supported in small ways my whole life, whenever I could spare a few dollars. A foundation for children's literacy, remembering the joy I found in reading to my own little ones. A sanctuary for abandoned animals, thinking of all the stray cats I'd nursed back to health over the years. A medical research fund for the diseases that had taken too many loved ones too soon. My heart ached, remembering how I'd often put my own passions aside, channeling my energy and what little extra money I had into my children's dreams. James's business ventures, which had often failed, leaving me to quietly cover his debts. Sarah's house down payment, a significant portion of my savings at the time, all given without question, with boundless love, a love they had now shown they did not reciprocate. The memory of those sacrifices, of scrimping and saving, of delaying my own dreams, now felt like a bitter pill. Each memory was a chisel, carving away the last vestiges of my doubt. This was not selfish. This was self-preservation. This was the restoration of dignity. It was a reclaiming of my own narrative. Finding the right legal counsel was paramount. It had to be someone discreet, someone unconnected to the complex, suffocating web of my family's affairs. I couldn't risk them finding out. Not yet. I made calls from a payphone at the corner store, a relic from an older era. The faint hum of its dial tone, a comfort in its anonymity. My voice, usually soft and a little shaky these days, carried a firmness I hadn't heard in years. I need to discuss my estate, I'd say, my words carefully chosen, and I need absolute confidentiality. The first meeting was a blur of legal jargon and polite questions. Mr. Davies, a man with kind, understanding eyes and an impressive array of law degrees framed on his wall, listened patiently. He didn't interrupt. He simply absorbed my story, not dwelling on the hurt, but focusing on my intentions. My voice was steady, clearer than it had been in years. My resolve, unwavering. He understood. He saw not a frail old woman, but a mind made up, a spirit wounded but not broken, a decision forged in the fires of betrayal. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, he said, consulting his notes, his tone respectful. You wish to transfer the entirety of your liquid assets and the deed to your property to a charitable trust, effective immediately. He paused, letting the full weight of the question hang in the air. Yes, I confirmed. The word felt like a physical release, a gasp of fresh air after being held under water. A weight lifted, even as a new one settled in its place, the thrilling, terrifying weight of the impending storm. The implications were vast, but my mind was clear. He explained the process, the intricate details of the paperwork, the absolute irrevocability of my decision. Once this is done, it's done, he cautioned, his gaze direct. There's no turning back, no changing your mind if family circumstances shift. Good, I replied, my voice barely a whisper, yet firm as granite. That's exactly what I want. They chose their path. I am simply choosing mine. The next few days were a whirlwind of quiet activity. More meetings, endless signatures, notarizations, each one a nail hammered into the coffin of their expectations. Each document signed, each seal pressed, felt like another brick in the wall I was building. A wall of protection, yes, but also a wall of separation. A clear line drawn. I walked through my home, the home where I had raised my children, where I had celebrated countless birthdays and Christmases. The scent of lavender from the garden, the faint smell of old books in my study, the familiar creak of the floorboards on the stairs. Every detail was imbued with a heightened sense of meaning. This was my legacy, my life's work, my sanctuary. And now it would serve a greater purpose, a purpose beyond the grasping hands of those who had ceased to see me as a mother, and only as an asset. One evening, Sarah brought over another stack of glossy brochures, even more luxurious than the last. "Look, Mother!" she exclaimed, her voice falsely bright, waving a pamphlet that depicted smiling silver-haired residents playing shuffleboard. "This one has a lovely courtyard, and this one boasts a full-time activities director and a resident chef. We could schedule a visit next week, just to see, for your comfort." James, ever the pragmatist, chimed in. "And we've had a few more real estate agents come by for initial appraisals. The market is exceptionally favorable right now, Mother. You'd get a phenomenal price for the house. Enough to live very comfortably, with plenty left over for us to manage." His tone was so casual, so presumptive, it stung like acid. They spoke of my future, as if I were absent. They spoke of my home, as if it were already theirs to sell, their inheritance secured. My heart, however, remained a stone, impervious to their veiled threats and thinly disguised greed. I smiled vaguely, nodding at the brochures, murmuring about thinking about it, about considering all options. I let them believe they were winning. The illusion of control was their greatest weakness, their overconfidence, my ultimate advantage. That night, long after they had left, their confident voices echoing faintly in my memory, and the house was shrouded in its usual comforting silence, I sat at my desk. The final documents lay before me, a lifetime of work, a lifetime of love, distilled into these pages. The transfer was complete. My lifetime of savings, my beloved home, now belonged to the future I had chosen for it. Not the future my children had planned for me, but one of purpose, of true legacy. A strange peace settled over me. It was a cold peace, born of profound loss, the loss of a family I once thought I knew, but also of profound power, the power of choice, the power of an elder who, once discarded, had risen. I had taken back what was mine. The house breathed around me. It held decades of my life. Now, it held a secret that would soon explode, shattering the carefully constructed world of my children's expectations. Poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, its warmth a stark contrast to the chill in my soul, a chill that was slowly, gloriously, being replaced by an ember of satisfaction. The night was dark outside my window, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of light within me. A new dawn was coming, and with it, a reckoning. I closed my eyes, picturing their faces when they would finally learn the truth. The thought was not cruel, but a quiet, deeply deserved satisfaction. Justice, after all, takes many forms, and mine was just beginning to unfold. The weeks that followed felt like a slow, deliberate dance, a waltz where I knew all the steps, and my family, unknowingly, danced to my tune. They believed they were leading. They believed I was simply a prop. My days were filled with quiet purpose. Meetings with my solicitor became more frequent. The details of my assets, meticulously built over decades, were laid bare. Each signature felt like chiseling a new line in stone. Each form, a step away from a past I no longer recognized. The charity I had chosen was small. It focused on providing comfort and dignity to lonely seniors. No grand buildings, no flashy galas, just warmth, companionship, and respect for those forgotten. It felt right. It felt like a mirror of what I craved, what they denied me. One Tuesday, my daughter Sarah called. Her voice was bright, a little too bright. Mother, I've been looking into some lovely facilities. There's one with a beautiful garden, just perfect for you. An excellent medical staff, of course, she went on, describing sunrooms and activities. She spoke of my future as if it were a brochure she was reading aloud, a future she had designed, without my input, without my permission. My blood ran cold, but my voice remained steady. That sounds comprehensive, dear. Comprehensive. The word tasted like ash. Later that week, my son Michael suggested we go through some old papers. He meant my financial statements. He meant my will. He wanted to help organize things before I moved. He saw it as preemptive. I saw it as predatory. I smiled, a thin, knowing smile. Oh, Michael, there's plenty of time for that. I'm quite content with my filing system. I watched his face fall, just a fraction. He was so transparent, so eager. The actual process of transferring my assets was complex. Not a simple click, but a series of legal maneuvers. Trust funds dissolved, property titles changed, investment portfolios liquidated and rerouted. Each step was carefully advised, meticulously executed. My solicitor, Mr. Davies, was a man of few words but sharp understanding. He saw the quiet resolve in my eyes. He didn't ask why. He simply facilitated how. He handled the sensitive nature of my instructions with admirable discretion. Once this is done, Mrs. Eldridge, he explained one afternoon, it is irreversible. The funds will be legally bound to the charity. There is no going back. I looked at him, my gaze unwavering. There is nothing to go back to, Mr. Davies. I signed the final documents. My hand, though aged, was steady. This wasn't anger driving me anymore. It was a deep, unshakable certainty, a reclaiming of myself, a final, definitive choice. The next few days, I monitored my bank accounts online. The numbers shifted, slowly, then rapidly. My lifetime's work, decades of careful saving, the future they envisioned for themselves began to vanish. It was a digital disappearing act, a silent vanishing. I felt a strange lightness, a freedom I hadn't known in years. The house, once a heavy symbol of my legacy and their greed, now felt like just a house, bricks and mortar, nothing more. My family continued their charade. Sarah brought over pamphlets for senior living communities, complete with smiling, active residents. Michael called frequently, subtly probing about my retirement plans. They spoke of needing access to my safety deposit box for important family documents. They wanted keys. They wanted information. They wanted control. They were so close, so very, very close to their imagined victory. And I was sitting on a secret so immense it hummed in the air around me like a silent generator of power. I watched them, these children I had raised, these adults who had become strangers. They were making plans, grand plans for trips, renovations, new cars, all funded in their minds by my impending departure, my quiet vanishing. But I would not vanish, not in the way they imagined. One Sunday, Sarah brought a large frame photograph of the family, all of us, smiling, from a Christmas past. "It's for your new room, Mother," she said, holding it up, "so you'll always feel at home." The irony was not lost on me. I nodded, a small, polite smile playing on my lips. "How thoughtful, dear." The funds officially cleared out of my accounts 2 days later. An email from Mr. Davies confirmed it. "All transfers complete, Mrs. Eldridge, as per your instructions." I closed my laptop. The silence in the house was profound. A new kind of silence. A peaceful silence. I walked through the rooms, touching the familiar surfaces. The old grandfather clock in the hall. The worn armrest of my favorite chair. Each object now held a different meaning. They were no longer the bait. They were simply mine. For now. The storm was brewing. I could feel it in the air. The delicate calm before the breaking. And I, for the first time in a long time, felt ready. More than ready. I felt prepared. I wondered how long it would take them to discover the truth. How many more empty plans would they weave before the thread finally snapped? I knew their next move would be to demand full access to my finances, to sort things out once and for all. They would push, and then they would fall. I sat by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. The red reminded me of their faces when they realized. But that was for another day, another part of this story. For now, there was just the quiet, the waiting, and the deep, silent satisfaction of a promise kept. A promise to myself. The silence in the room was thick, heavier than the summer air outside. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, cleared his throat, adjusting his spectacles. He looked at me, then at Michael, then at Sarah. Their faces were a canvas of expectant greed. "So, Mrs. Albright," Michael began, a forced smile playing on his lips, "everything is in order then? We're just here to finalize the—" He trailed off, hinting at the inheritance they so desperately craved. I sat very still. My hands were folded in my lap, cool and steady. This was it. The moment I had planned for. The moment I had dreamt of. The moment that had kept me going through weeks of feigned compliance and silent rebellion. Mr. Henderson picked up a document. He didn't look at me this time. His gaze was fixed on Michael and Sarah. "There has been a change, Mr. and Mrs. Davies." The smiles on their faces faltered. Sarah leaned forward slightly, a frown beginning to crease her brow. "A change? What kind of change, Mr. Henderson?" Her voice was sharper than she intended. "Mrs. Albright," he continued, his voice calm, professional, exercised her right to amend her estate plan. Michael laughed. A short, nervous sound. Of course. Standard procedure, right, Mom? Just making sure everything is. He looked at me, hoping for reassurance. I gave him none. Not exactly standard, Michael, Mr. Henderson said. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Approximately 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Albright executed a new will. Sarah's eyes narrowed. A new will? But we just updated the old one last year. Everything was perfectly clear then. She looked at me, a glimmer of suspicion in her gaze. Indeed, Mr. Henderson agreed. But circumstances change. Mrs. Albright felt compelled to make significant revisions. He placed the document on the table, turning it towards them. Specifically, Mrs. Albright has chosen to disinherit both of you, Michael and Sarah Davies, from her estate. The words hit them like physical blows. Michael's face went white. Sarah gasped, a small choked sound. Disinherit, Michael sputtered, rising slightly from his chair. What are you talking about? Mom, what is this? His voice was rising, losing its polite veneer. I met his gaze. My voice, when it came, was soft but firm. It means exactly what Mr. Henderson said, Michael. You and Sarah will receive nothing. Sarah's face flushed a furious red. Nothing? After everything we've done for you? All the trips to the doctor, the groceries, the conversations about your future? Her voice was laced with outrage, but also with a dawning horror. My future, I echoed quietly. Yes, we did have some conversations about my future, didn't we? Conversations I was never meant to hear. Michael slammed his hand on the table, making the papers jump. This is insane. You can't do this, Mom. This is our inheritance. This house, the accounts. Everything is supposed to come to us. Supposed to? I raised an eyebrow. Is that what you believe, Michael? That my life, my assets, my home, they were yours for the taking? It's family, Mom, Sarah interjected, her voice shrill. It's tradition. It's what parents do for their children. And what children do for their parents, Sarah? I asked, my voice still dangerously calm. Is discussing your mother's placement in a home, selling her possessions, and divvying up her wealth behind her back, is that tradition? Their eyes widened. The color drained from their faces once more. They knew. They understood that I knew. The memory of that Sunday lunch, the hushed whispers, the cruel plans. It all came rushing back to them, reflected in their suddenly guilty eyes. Mom, we were just... Michael began, stammering, searching for an excuse. You were just deciding my fate, weren't you? I finished for him. Deciding that I was a burden. Deciding that my home was simply an asset to be liquidated. Deciding that my remaining years were best spent in a facility of your choosing, while you enjoyed the spoils. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, whether of genuine regret or frustrated greed, I couldn't tell. But Mom, we love you. We just thought it was for your own good. For my own good? I scoffed softly. Or for your own financial good? The good that would put a down payment on Michael's new boat? The good that would fund Sarah's renovation project? Mr. Henderson cleared his throat again, stepping in. Mrs. Albright's new will directs all of her assets, including the house and all financial holdings, to be transferred to the Silver Linings Charity for elderly care and support. The name of the charity hung in the air, a final, definitive pronouncement. A charity? Michael roared, completely losing his composure. You're giving everything to a charity? Are you mad? I'm not mad, Michael, I said, meeting his furious gaze without flinching. I am simply making sure my legacy benefits those who genuinely need it, not those who merely expect it. This is a mistake, Mom. A terrible, terrible mistake, Sarah pleaded, her voice cracking. Think about it. What about us? Your own children? What about me, Sarah? I retorted, my voice gaining strength. What about my dignity, my autonomy, my peace of mind? Did you think about those things when you plotted behind my back? The room fell silent again, save for Sarah's ragged breathing. The papers have all been signed, Mr. Henderson confirmed, tapping the document. The transfers are complete. As of last week, all ownership of Mrs. Albright's assets belongs to the Silver Linings Charity. They have already expressed their profound gratitude. Michael's jaw worked. He stared at me, then at Mr. Henderson, then back at me. His eyes were no longer angry. They held a chilling blend of disbelief and utter despair. The dream of easy money, of a comfortable future built on my dwindling years, had evaporated before his very eyes. "You really did it," he whispered, as if he couldn't believe his own mother was capable of such a thing. "I did," I confirmed, "and I did it with a clear conscience." I rose from my chair, my joints protesting slightly, but my spirit resolute. "You may leave now. Mr. Henderson and I have further matters to discuss." Sarah burst into tears, a dramatic wailing sound that grated on my nerves. Michael, however, remained rooted to the spot, his face a mask of bitter comprehension. He had underestimated me. They both had. "Mom, please," Sarah sobbed, reaching out a hand. "Don't do this. We can talk about this. We can fix it." "There's nothing to fix, Sarah," I said, my voice cold. "The decision is made. The path is set." I walked over to the large window, looking out at the familiar garden. The roses were in full bloom, their petals a vibrant splash of color against the green. This house, my home, would now be a place of solace for others, not a forgotten monument to my perceived weakness. It felt right. It felt profoundly, undeniably right. Michael finally moved, pulling a distraught Sarah by the arm. They stumbled out of the office, their footsteps echoing down the hall, each step a testament to their shattered expectations. Mr. Henderson smiled faintly. "Remarkable, Mrs. Albright. Truly remarkable." I turned back to him, a faint smile on my own lips. "It was time, Mr. Henderson. Time to remind them that a life is lived until its very last breath, and that dignity is not a commodity to be traded." He nodded. "Indeed, the charity is delighted. They plan to use the house as a new care facility dedicated to providing comfort and support for lonely seniors. They even suggested naming a wing after you. A wing named after me. The irony was not lost. My children wanted me in a home. Now, my home would be the home, a sanctuary for those truly in need. I looked around the office, the place where so many decisions had been made, so many lives shaped. Now, it was the place where a final, resounding statement had been delivered. The confrontation was over. The battle for my assets had been won, not by hoarding, but by giving. There was a quiet satisfaction in my heart, a sense of peace that had been missing for too long. But beneath it, a tiny ache remained. The ache of a mother who had to teach her children a lesson so harsh. The ache of realizing that the love you thought was unconditional came with a price tag. What would they do now? Would they ever understand? Would they ever truly regret their choices, or merely the loss of their anticipated wealth? I didn't know, and for the first time in a very long while, I found that I didn't truly care. My future was now in my own hands, not theirs, and it looked brighter than it had in years. The old house, soon to be filled with new voices, new stories, would be a testament to a life reclaimed. And as for me, I still had a little life left to live. A quiet life, perhaps, but one lived on my own terms. The thought of it was both exhilarating and a little terrifying. Where would I go? What new chapter awaited? The answers were still unclear, but the path was open. cleared of the heavy weight of expectation and betrayal.